Released by Koei Tecmo in 2023 on the PlayStation 4 and 5, Switch, and PC, Fate Samurai Remnant would be an action RPG installment in the Fate series. Directed by Ryota Matsuhita and written by Yukiko Nojima, the game would be an isolated tale of a similar Holy Grail war within the Fate universe. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a RECAPitation. As the game begins, it's 1651 in the town of Asakusa as a young swordsman named Miyamoto Iori, adopted son of swordmaster Miyamoto Musashi, is practicing his Niten Ichi-Ryu dual-blade fighting style. Taking a job to stop a group of bandits, Iori shows he is able to handle dozens of foot soldiers at once as he notices a strange mark forming on his hand. That night, a powerful armored foe ambushes Iori, easily overwhelming him in a duel as it is revealed they are the Rider's servant in service to Yui Shosetsu, a self-proclaimed liberator. Before she can execute him, Iori declares his determination to live as the command spell on his hand fully forms, summoning a servant of the Saber class who appears in time to ward off his assailants. Saber and Iori team up to fend off Rider, but their battle is interrupted by a Lancer servant whose fiery attacks quickly spread to consume Asakusa. Saber readies their noble phantasm to end the battle quickly, but not wishing to sacrifice the town, Iori unknowingly uses a command spell to force Saber to stop. Though staggered, Saber's powerful attack still follows through, blowing away Lancer and shocking Iori with the devastation caused. Injured, Lancer falls back with her scarred master, insisting the Waxing Moon ritual needs to remain hidden. Yui and Rider fall back as well, promising to kill him later as Iori scolds Saber for causing so much collateral damage. Saber explains Iori has been chosen for the Waxing Moon ritual, wherein 7 masters will fight to the death until only one is left. Each master is accompanied by a heroic spirit acting as their servant as the winning team gets a wish of theirs granted, though Saber comments that Iori, despite his skills, is relatively weak and thus refuses to reveal their true name to him. Elsewhere, Yui reports to a lord named Tsuchi Mikado and is ambushed by Lancer's master on her way out, who introduces himself as Chiemon, a vengeful survivor of the Shimabara rebellion. The next day, Iori is approached by his adopted sister Kaya in the Crimson Codex, a talking magic grimoire left as an heirloom from Iori's foster father that has helped him refine his magic skills. Taking time to pet the local dogs and cats, Iori also has the Crimson Codex magically fortify and rebuild his home into a workshop and base. Malevolent monsters now materialize in dark corners around town, as after doing a job in Yoshiwara, the pair are met by a famous courtesan named Takao Dayu who seeks her berserker bodyguard on them. However, the giant who faces Saber is a decoy, as her true berserker servant turns out to be Iori's master, Miyamoto Musashi, whom he recognizes by the unique fighting style of the Niten Ichi-Ryu. Musashi halts her attack as Iori calls a truce, wondering how his old man somehow came back from the dead and turned into a young woman. Musashi comments that Iori she knows is exactly the same as him, though she comes from a world where samurai legend Musashi was born a female, and that is the heroic spirit summoned here, so they are the same Musashi but slightly different in details. Takao also notices Iori's command spell has used up one charge, explaining its power and influence over a servant, informing him he only has 3 total to work with. Seeing they are completely clueless, Dayu elaborates the Waxing Moon is an artifact that is set to grant any wish, and the 7 masters participate in the killing game to determine who wins a wish. She adds the Waxing Moon calls 15 heroic spirits to this world, each one of 7 general classes, though the 8 remaining heroic spirits are independent rogue servants with no master. Her bodyguard that fought Saber is one such rogue servant, as Takao also mentions Lord Tsuchi Mikado governs and observes the Waxing Moon ritual, using mages to make sure their war stays hidden. The Crimson Codex emerges to point out this ritual seems based in foreign magic, suspecting it to be a Holy Grail subspecies. After explaining the essentials of the ritual, Takao demands they maintain their truce through regular information and gossip exchange, letting them leave to collect more, though to the side she doesn't think highly of Iori as a combatant. After discussing things, Iori and Saber agree to search for Yui and Rider first, heading to Okachimachi and learning Yui is gathering Ronin, unhappy with the current government at a local military school. While searching for the academy, they also secure fonts of power along ley lines across Edo, encountering Ronin being mind-controlled by some unseen spellcaster and a petite rogue Rider servant. Enamored with Iori, she introduces herself as Arya and befriends a swordsman as the duo learn where Yui's base is and return home while noticing a servant has set up a shop near them. Boldly declaring himself the king of all heroes and boss of the insignificant textile wholesale shop Babylonia, Gilgamesh has no problem revealing he is a rogue servant of the uncommon ruler class. However, despite his immense power, he has no interest in participating in this ritual, calling it a sham, and so wishes to find amusement in other manners. On their way to Yui's base in Kanda, the group accidentally stumble onto the base of Chiemon and Lancer instead, and while they clash, their fight is interrupted by surprise serpentine strikes from a hidden assassin servant. Pleased to see the pair keep their promise to locate an enemy base, Musashi arrives and takes on Assassin herself, forcing him away. As Saber and Lancer duel, a mysterious rogue Saber spirit enters the fray, deliberately targeting Lancer, but expending a command spell, Chiemon has Lancer fend him off with powerful flames from her noble phantasm. A sudden rain of arrows now shower the battlefield as Saber and Iori look up to see a flying ship overhead as the archer servant makes his appearance and pulls the pair out from the chaotic battleground. They are brought before his master in Akasaka, Zhang Changgong, who wishes to form a temporary alliance to take down Assassin together, willing to disclose Archer's true name to prove his sincerity. The pair agree to team up as Archer reveals he is Zhou Yu, retainer of the Sun Clan, and Zhang suspects the Shogun or someone close to him is involved in the Waxing Moon ritual, working with his patron to disrupt it. Zhang gives Iori a device to communicate over long distances, as while they search for leads on Assassin, they run into a rogue Lancer servant who is so eager to fight he agrees to help out Iori after a duel. Their investigation leads them to the port town of Shinagawa, where the duo spot an unusual galleon docked as a merchant from Holland introduces herself as the owner, though to the side she is the true master of Assassin, already aware of Iori and Saber's intentions. The group fights some foreign mages and learns the location of their base in Yokosuka and their leader Dorothea Koyet, but as they continue their investigation they run into a rogue archer servant who is opposing the same foreign forces and agrees to an alliance. Later, Iori and Saber are approached by a magistrate named Kakunoshin who informs them they are seeking an extremely skilled swordsman who has been murdering people around Edo. Iori is intrigued and learns from his constable friend the skill of the murderer rivals that of a sword saint, and hearing this, Iori is interested in helping the investigation, but the magistrate finds Iori awfully suspicious. Catching sight of a fresh murder, Iori is accused of being the murderer and flees the authorities when the pair are met by a man who suddenly attacks with godlike speed and Saber declares he is actually a heroic spirit. However, he pauses and sheathes his sword upon hearing Iori's name, introducing himself as Yagyu Munamori, the genius swordmaster and father to Yagyu Jubei. He apologizes for the misunderstanding, believing it is fate to meet with Musashi's disciple, and replies to their questions by stating he is also not the murderer they are looking for. He accepts the offer to help look for the true culprit as Kakunoshin continues to try and frame Iori as the murderer. Following leads, the group learns the victims were all corrupt officials of ill repute, and the culprit has a huge sword like the Yagyu Odachi and even uses the Yagyu sword style. They also find a hit list with Kakunoshin's name on it, going to warn him as Yagyu observes Iori's swordsmanship, sensing it betrays a very savage nature underneath. Unfortunately, they find Kakunoshin has already been cut down by a man he was working with who turns out to be Munamori's nephew Toshiyoshi, who died a year ago and wanders the world not as a heroic spirit, but as a regretful ghost. The wandering spirit assumes a fearsome form and says he is here to kill Munamori before falling back. Iori notices something off about Kakunoshin's death as Musashi now enters on the same investigation, familiar with both Yagyu. Toshiyoshi declares he worked with the corrupt officials to draw out Munamori and prove his way of the sword is superior, unable to pass on with his unresolved envy. Together the group defeats the menacing Phantom, but Musashi then draws her blade on Munamori, declaring he was the actual serial killer the whole time. Iori agrees, never having trusted Yagyu since they met, and was quietly aware of how he has been stringing them along on purpose. Yagyu laughs, revealing Iori is correct and explains he is Yagyu Munamori, but is not the one they know from legend, and instead is from a time where he chose a different path in the light and instead operated from the shadows as leader of the Yagyu ninja troupe. He reveals his noble phantasm is summoning shadow minions to do his bidding and has ever committed to doing what he desires, such as cutting down evildoers or fighting Musashi to the death in another world. Hearing this, Toshiyoshi thinks to now simply indulge in the life of the blade too, as both Yagyu challenge the Miyamotos, urging them both to give in to their impulses and thirst for battle. Both sides clash as the Nitanichi Ryu style emerges victorious, and while both shadows depart with a satisfied battle, Munamori looks at Iori before he fades, saying he is not the only demon lurking here. However, the next day Munamori appears at Iori's home, saying he could not leave this world so soon after all, wishing to see the Waxing Moon play out, and promises to stop his killings in exchange for a contract to Iori. Gaining another ally, they return to the ritual, and finding unmistakable evidence of Assassin being in league with the hostile foreigners, they deduce Dorothea is Assassin's master, though are nearly caught off guard by the rogue servant Assassin. They fend off his furious fists until something calls them away, as they also fall back and rest up. Over dinner, Saber begins to understand and appreciate more of Iori's ideas and principles. Saber even begins to practice Iori's sword style in secret, while Iori somehow begins to see Saber's past in his dreams. The next day, the duo briefs Zhang on what they know so far, and both teams agree now is the time to strike. At the same time, Assassin's forces lay siege to Yoshiwara, and the duo help both Berserkers defend the town, and after returning Berserker's lost item, Iori earns the rogue servant's appreciation and aid. Beginning the assault on Yokosuka, Iori finds the galleon to be the master's base as he sees the merchant he met earlier is Dorothea, mage from the clock tower and master of assassin, who enters with a powerful snake summon akin to a legendary sea god. Evening the odds, Musashi enters to fight alongside Iori, as does Zong and Archer, and to everyone's surprise, even Ryder enters, claiming the Great Orochi for themselves. Finding 4 servants is too much for her to handle, Dorothea and Assassin retreat, but not before Assassin poisons Iori with a glancing blow. Ignoring his wound for now, Iori tells Saber they are using this opportunity to take down Ryder too, ordering them to unleash their full strength against the serpent as it makes their way to the shore. With Musashi's help, the giant snake is defeated as Saber manages to win against Ryder in a duel, and Iori spends another command seal to unleash Saber's noble phantasm to completely annihilate the massive monster with a torrent of overwhelming water serpents of their own. Iori is mesmerized by Saber unleashing their heavenly blade and demonstrating flawless blade work, reminded of the sword saint that inspired them as a child, as new feelings rise up in him. Seeing this, Yui and Ryder opt to withdraw as well, having now faced all 7 servants and gathered enough information, but the rogue Saber tries to stop them, calling out Ryder specifically. After the battle, Iori rests to recover from the poison, and Saber discovers that Iori's little sister Kaya is harboring a heroic spirit somehow, as she completely heals Iori. However, this is also detected by Yui and Chiamon, as the next day Chiamon and Lancer return to Iori's home and set it on fire, kidnapping Kaya specifically. Relaying this information to Musashi and Zong, Iori believes that Chiamon is working for Yui, while at the same time, Chiamon declares he will sacrifice Kaya as the 15th servant needed for the ritual. Iori and Saber find Chiamon already abandoned the base they knew about in Koishikawa, and later catch a fleeting glimpse of the caster servant, reporting their findings and gaining new leads on Assassin as well. Fighting Dorothea, they accuse her of kidnapping Kaya, but she bluntly denies this, instead sharing that she has detected that someone to the east is preparing a massive spell of some sort, and to the side learns that Yui is actually an advanced homunculus. Checking out new leads, the duo encounter Rogue Saber, who is fighting the same foes as it becomes clear Yui has a connection to the shogunate. He warns them about Ryder specifically, confirms Lancer and Ryder are allies, reveals Lancer's location in Kanagawa port, and apologizes that he spotted Kaya in their grasp but failed to rescue her. The duo quickly catch up to Lancer, who says Kaya is a necessary sacrifice for her master, but at this time the Crimson Codex realizes Lancer's true name as Jeanne d'Arc, the hero who saved France in the Saint of the 100 Years' War. However, he notices her form seems corrupted somehow, suspecting this occurred during her summoning. Saber's water affinity is able to douse Lancer's hungry flames as Iori rescues Kaya, but they are interrupted as Rogue Lancer now appears under some sort of evil possession. Jeanne tells Iori to take Kaya and leave as she doesn't understand why Rogue Lancer is here, but knows Kaya must be kept safe. Unfortunately, Iori's escape is cut off by Rogue Archer, Arya, and even Rogue Berserker, all somehow under the same tainted spell. Musashi and Zhou arrive, saying they saw Berserker suddenly enter a frenzy and head in this direction, following him here, and tell Iori to fall back with Kaya as they will handle things now. Zhou kites Berserker away as Zong uses a command seal to empower Archer to use his noble phantasm on the Berserker, engulfing the rogue servant in an explosive barrage. As Berserker retreats heavily wounded, the group questions how several servants suddenly were controlled against their wills so far from any known bases. There is also the case of Yui mind-controlling Ronin and Ryder mind-controlling the giant serpent, but even then there is the question of why so many servants were sent around Kaya, much less how. Kaya wakes up with no memory of her kidnapping, as elsewhere Tsuchimikado approaches Takao, informing her Musashi interrupted their plans last night, but appreciates her lending him the rogue Berserker all the same, assuring her their deal will continue, and he will grant her wish. To the side, Takao shares with Musashi that she knows she cannot trust Tsuchimikado, but she has to take every opportunity she can to realize her goal of freeing her town of prostitution, knowing she is a weak master and permitting Musashi to act freely. Over with Tsuchimikado, he informs his own servant, Caster, how most of the rogue heroic spirits are under his command, as he says he will now prepare a new spell. Wishing to secure a trump card, Tsuchimikado summons another rogue spirit, Ibuki Doji, the divided spirit of Yamato no Orochi, also known as the Great God Ibuki. Unfortunately, the divine spirit ends up being too powerful for the mage to control as it wanders off, and to his surprise, Gilgamesh tricks her, gets the spirit drunk, and traps it in an arena of his own making. Summoning all of the masters and servants here through their dreams, Gilgamesh declares a fighting tournament for the prize of a wish granted by himself. To the side, Tsuchimikado sees this arena as actually a cage for the god, built to siphon its energy, commenting how ruler-class heroic spirits are irregular but not unheard of classifications. Trapped as such, she will disappear without energy, and so opt to free her themselves, though Caster comments this will not likely work out as Ibuki Doji cannot be controlled. Ibuki Doji is aware this is meant to seal her, but doesn't mind having fun before going home, eagerly taking on all challengers. The Divine Spirit demolishes all heroic spirits in battle, prompting the Hero King himself to subdue the god and deliver a battle so great she is finally satisfied and leaves content, noting a particular interest in Iori. Iori wakes up from the strangely real dream, forgetting the details, but is approached by Ibuki Doji, who introduces herself and says while she intends to watch over this ritual from the sidelines, she invites herself to be his partner. The next day, Iori tries to figure out why only some rogue servants were controlled by looking into the rogue servants who resisted the effect. They start with their local textile wholesale emperor, Gilgamesh, who defies any mage from touching his soul, and mentions another heroic spirit in Koishikawa who resisted as well. Along the way, they see Rogue Assassin has been compromised and run into Berserker again, snapped back to normal since his defeat, who thanks Iori in his own way. Checking out Gilgamesh's lead, they run into the Rogue Caster servant, who quickly turns Iori into a piglet with her entrapping magical meal, and Saber quickly explains other servants were being mind-controlled and they sought her out as a potential ally. Believing them, Rogue Caster helps lift the transformation and agrees to aid Iori for fun, introducing herself as the Great Greek Witch Kirky. Kirky also notices the Waxing Moon ritual is a very inefficient imitation of the original ritual, theorizing whoever is behind it used precognition in a sloppy way. At the same time, Caster speaks with Tsuchimikado, who reveals the administrator conducted the ritual from the records of a Holy Grail war yet to occur, written by the powerful Abe no Seimei who could see into the future. However, Caster adds that while it is an impressive feat, this ritual is flawed, as not all 15 servants summoned will be used or are even needed for the wish. Tsuchimikado understands, explaining the 15th and final servant will be enough for a small miracle all the same, admitting the rogue servants are a bit of a mistaken side effect. Caster adds that not all the rogue servants submitted to the spell Tsuchimikado cast the other day, much less servants with masters, but the Overseer isn't concerned, beginning the next phase of his plan. Over with Iori, he dodges a swing from Saber as his servant is now suddenly possessed and hostile like the other rogue servants. Having earlier caught a glimpse into Saber's past via a dream, Iori believes masters and servants have a mental link, asking the Crimson Codex to send him into Saber's mind. The spell works as Iori walks the memories of Saber, learning the path of death and destruction they have walked, with a history of killing gods and dissidents to the kingdom. In an effort to wake them up, Iori battles Saber while pushed to the brink of his swordsmanship, realizing now who they really are and snapping them to attention by speaking Saber's true name of the lonely slayer of kin, kings, and gods, Yamato Takaru. Waking up, Saber is grateful to Iori as the master says their duel was a draw, and elsewhere, servants such as Assassin are aware someone is trying to magically take over their mind but are confident in their intrinsic spell resistance. However, Assassin wishes to test Dorothea, allowing the spell to take hold and knocks out his master. Later, Iori hears from Zong Archer has fallen victim as well as they hurry to Akasaka and find the entire town in flames from Archer's attacks. Iori and Saber work with Zong to keep Zhou Yu in check as he briefly regains some control as he allows himself to take Saber's noble phantasm directly. Defeated, he tells Zong to keep chasing his dream without him as he turns his arrow to himself and takes his own life. Zong understands, choosing to return to the mainland, and wishes Iori well as the first master out of the ritual. Wishing to check the extent of his spell on their former allies, Iori and Saber run into Dorothea on her own, who shares that she too has lost control of Assassin. She wishes to resolve this issue on her own, but Iori suggests they work together on this, as Assassin may lead them to the mastermind behind all this, making it clear they will be using each other in this uneasy alliance. Dorothea can still sense her servant, leading them to him, but are surprised to find Yui injured and facing down her own possessed rider as well as all the other mind-controlled rogue servants. Iori and Saber save her just in time, quickly making their escape as Chiamon looks on with an unaffected Lancer. Elsewhere, Takao is relieved both of her berserkers are fine, but a shocked rogue berserker falls under the spell's influence again and darts away. Tsuchimikado gloats over the 7 servants under his command but still wonders where the 15th servant is, repeating they are needed to complete the ritual. Back with Iori, he learns from Yui that Tsuchimikado is at the center of everything, despite being the observer as well. Seeing the whole ritual is rigged, Iori deduces he must be working with the shogunate, and Yui confirms, saying Tsuchimikado made a deal with the shogunate, securing political favor in exchange for the wish. Iori also deduces Tsuchimikado is Caster's master and the one behind the possessed Ronin, but Saber demands to know why Kaya was kidnapped earlier, though Yui avoids the question. Suddenly, some thugs under Tsuchimikado try to attack Iori at his base, clearing all doubts of enmity, and Dorothea offers to have some of her men stand guard going forward. To the side, Saber follows Kaya, who reveals she is indeed hosting Ototachibana Hime, the 15th heroic spirit and the wife to Yamato Takaru, who tells Saber she made her own choice to sacrifice herself with no regrets. However, she quickly tires and reverts to Kaya again, who is unaware of the spirit hiding within her. Wishing to consult Takao on this revelation about Tsuchimikado, Iori heads out but finds she has left town. Rogue Caster informs them Tsuchimikado is at Kanegi Temple, but when they arrive they are greeted by the possessed rogue servants, though they find Rogue Saber has eluded the spell as well. Dorothea believes Rogue Berserker's true identity is the Israelite warrior judged from the Old Testament, Samson, which means cutting the source of his power. His long hair is his weakness. Musashi takes the lead as Takao literally backstabs her ally, cutting off his hair and robbing him of all his power to where Saber easily runs him through. Dying, Samson is reminded how he was betrayed by his lover Delilah when he first died, but thanks to Kao anyway as he fades away. Beyond, Assassin waits for them, forming a giant body made of snakes as his noble phantasm as Dorothea leads him away to handle him herself. Knowing the mage will die on her own, Iori backs her up as well as she reveals his true name of Koga Saburo, founder of the Koga School of Ninjutsu, and cursed by Yamato no Orochi to become a demon. Both masters synchronize their attacks, with Saber dealing the finishing blow as Assassin is destroyed, improving his opinion of his master as Dorothea is removed from the contest. Saber now urges them to return to deal with Tsuchimikado as Dorothea thanks them and wishes Iori luck under her breath. Elsewhere, Chiyamon is content to watch both sides take each other down, but openly despises Iori, who speaks of virtue but has the same bloodthirsty look in his eye that Chiyamon recognizes and shares. He is also annoyed Jean tries to limit his self-destructive habits out of concern for him, ordering her not to show compassion for him as he opens the gates of hell. Back with Iori, he focuses on Tsuchimikado as the duo run into Rogue Saber again, who has not been affected by the controlling spell but is unsure how. Rogue Saber is also skeptical Ryder truly fell victim to the spell, sharing their power rivals that of gods, and teams up the duo to verify this personally. As they enter Kanegi Temple, Tsuchimikado appears before them, wondering how both Sabers evaded the spell, but is not worried as Rogue Saber now stumbles and is claimed by the mind control. Rogue Saber tries to resist, and catching this, Iori has Saber break Rogue Saber's sword as the broken blade flies out and strikes Tsuchimikado. The mage laughs despite his injuries, saying the waxing moon is merely a source of magical energy, not a granter of wishes, and will benefit only himself. He also reveals he is behind the spell controlling the servants and Caster as master, summoning Arya, Rogue Lancer, and Rogue Assassin to his side. However, Chiyamon and Lancer now appear, quickly strike down the rogue servants, and with the same momentum, blitz Tsuchimikado with a killing blow. The treacherous administrator calls out to Ryder, but Ryder does not come, as Jean executes Tsuchimikado and the spell immediately lifts from all the rogue servants. Chiyamon has Lancer attack the duo next, but with both sabers at his side, Iori manages to fend her off and force Chiyamon to retreat as Yui looks on. His master destroyed, Caster approaches Zong, demanding to form a contract so they can both re-enter the ritual. At first, Zong refuses, but as Caster reminds the general of his emotional burden and augurs failure in his endeavors, he reconsiders in his desperation. Meanwhile, Yui uncovers more proof that Tsuchimikado wished to restore his family name and regain power over the capital, selling a fake wish to the shogunate. As it turns out, Yui and Ryder are putting on an act, as Ryder was only pretending to be controlled as Chiyamon walks in and admits he was the one who first kidnapped Kaya. Chiyamon now demands the Waxing Moon's vessel, but unfazed, Yui demands Lancer's soul in exchange for letting Chiyamon live. Chiyamon refuses, and shrugging, Yui leaves, confident they can kill Lancer at any time, as Chiyamon is loath to agree. Back with Saber, they reflect on the sorrow they garnered in the past and how they are actually enjoying this time with Iori, asking the young warrior what wish he wants granted. Iori replies that he doesn't have a specific wish that he couldn't just achieve on his own, and when asked what they want, Saber admits they don't know what desire they were summoned here with other than wishing to end the ritual. The next day, they learn from Dorothea's men that Yui has claimed the Waxing Moon's vessel and will finalize the ritual with it. Iori learns when servants are defeated, their souls and their enormous magical energy are collected by the vessel, and enough souls will provide the power needed to grant a wish. As thanks for defeating Tsuchimikado and freeing her, Arya expresses her fondness and appreciation for Iori. Iori gets a friendly visit from Kirky, as well as Rogue Saber, who reveals his helm to thank Iori too and reveal he is Kiso Yoshinaka, Asahi Shogun. To the side, Yamato speaks more with Ototachibana Hime, resolving their regretful past by relieving more of their feelings. Iori also gives Rogue Lancer the satisfying duel he has been seeking, earning his respect and loyalty, revealing his identity to be the Irish demigod and legendary guard dog Cuchulainn. Gilgamesh offers the duo an opportunity to bow out of the ritual and serve him instead as he takes over the world, but politely refusing, the duo are pushed to their limit as they fight the legendary hero, impressing him by edging out a victory. They are then approached by Rogue Archer, who also wishes to duel, as the pair win, earning his respect and support as a friend, revealing his true name as the Hindu hero and son of Indra, Arjuna. Heading to Yui and Kanda, they find she is using non-humans, including demonic puppets, to protect her base, though as they confront Rogue Assassin, he reveals he has chosen to ally himself with Yui. The servant asks Iori what his wish is that makes him oppose Yui, and Iori replies he now wishes to destroy the ritual's vessel. Understanding, Rogue Assassin introduces himself as master of the one-hit kill Demon Fist, Li Shuwen, and tests the warrior's mettle, losing in the duel and accepts the mercy of Iori, sparing him. He reveals where Yui really is at Senjoji Temple as the pair finally face down Yui and Rider, noticing the servant's deception. Yui says the vessel just needs one last heroic soul to be full, as Iori asks her for her wish, and she replies she will right all wrongs and create an equitable society. She also reveals she is not a human, but a homunculus, with life infused into an artificial body by Lord Mori Suiken. She was not created with any desires originally, but thought of this herself when she looked around and saw the endless tragedy and injustice worldwide. Iori says he understands, but will still oppose her, as with Saber and his allied servants clashes against Yui and an indomitable Rider. Edging out a win, the duo take down Rider as their armor breaks apart, revealing a slender young woman underneath. Laughing maniacally in agreement at this rotten world, Rider invokes her noble phantasm, a colossal ox spirit, to crush everything, revealing her true name to be Ushi Gozen, a demon child carrying the blood of Gozu Tenno and god of Jetavana. Yui is shocked as Rider told her before they were Minamoto no Raiko, and Ushi Gozen says they are one and the same. Nevertheless, she will destroy this world in the name of righteousness and will seize the ritual for herself in that endeavor. Yui uses her command seal to stop her servant, but it fails as Ushi Gozen firmly believes she is setting the world right per her wish and now cannot stop because of the command. Ushi Gozen warps away as Musashi now enters, getting a grasp of the situation. Normally they could stop the servant by killing the master, but that would not stop her noble phantasm that she summoned, which is now absorbing all the power from all the ley lines across the land. Iori thinks to start cutting off the ley lines to weaken it, and Musashi calls out Shiamon and Lancer lurking nearby, telling them to help too. Even Dorothea shows up to provide support fire as everyone's combined efforts topple Ushi Gozen even in her ascended form, as Kiso Yoshinaka enters the battle to help bring the ogre to her knees, allowing Saber to deal the final blow with a full-power noble phantasm. The battle over, Iori turns to see Yui approached by Dorothea's men, who explain they are mages of the clock tower, and homunculi are alchemical creations born of their western magecraft, so they will be taking her in. Yui complies, stating her wish was only bringing more wrong into the world, but Iori says Yui also inspired a lot of followers who wanted the same wish, so it is possible she can achieve her dream of societal reform without the waxing moon. Yui replies that Iori is more likely to be the one to achieve it, and Iori shakes her hand on it, promising to bring peace. Her business done, Musashi now says it's time for her to leave, saying she's built different and she doesn't disappear if she cannot sustain her body and instead crosses over to a different parallel world. Agreeing, Takao uses up the rest of her command seals, wishing Musashi well on her next journey, but before leaving, both Iori and Musashi have one last duel as master and disciple. Pouring everything he has into his hardened sword, Iori manages to outwit and surpass his master with the killing blow move learned from her top rival. Approving of Iori, Musashi thanks her student for such a good fight as the berserker disappears as Saber joins Iori in claiming the Waxing Moon vessel. The Crimson Codex observes the vessel as a cheap forgery of the Holy Grail and is not able to properly store magical energy like the heroic spirit's souls, and so rupturing it with a direct strike would likely destroy everything around them. Rather, the Grimoire can fuse it into itself and it will be safe to destroy, fine with being sacrificed. However, Chiamon ambushes Iori as Saber holds her counterattack, seeing them holding Kaya as a hostage again. Chiamon takes the vessel and leaves, and Iori wonders why they specifically targeted Kaya again. Unfortunately, they are interrupted again as Zong approaches Iori with the plea to have the vessel in order to save his country stricken by war, criticizing Iori's preaching of morality as the conceit of someone who has grown up without war. Zong reveals he is now the master of Castor, Castor reveals he knows Saber's true name, and then reveals himself to be the first recorder of Japan, Ieda no Are. Castor now unleashes his noble phantasm, which is a reality marble, ensnaring all of them in his pocket dimension that observes only his recorded truth and strips mythical figures like Yamato of their exaggerated legendary strength. As a normal man, Iori is at an advantage, pressuring both Zong and Castor, forcing them to burn all of their command seal power into summoning the divine spirit of destruction, Yasumagatsuhi. Slaying the false god, Saber finishes it and Caster with the noble phantasm as the recorder admits it's his own fault for etching Yamato into history as a legend. The battle over, Zong admits his defeat again but still doesn't give up on his dreams as he goes home and the duo tracks Chimon to Edo Castle. Finding it covered in corruption leaking from the vessel, they confront the madman who wishes to burn everything down with only one final heroic spirit remaining. The final two masters clash as Jean buys enough time for Chimon to approach Kaya with the vessel in hand, claiming her magical energy, as the vessel opens up, wraps him in a black sludge, and consumes both him and Kaya. Chimon uses a command seal to force Jean to be the final heroic spirit sacrifice as the Avenger makes his wish to open the gates of hell, transforming into a giant monster that bursts from its fiery gates. Iori is stunned at losing Kaya, but Saber shakes him out, revealing Kaya was protected by the spirit of Yamato's wife, Ota Tachibana, and because Chimon cannot use divine magic, means she is alive but sealed inside his body. Weakening the monster with their combined attacks, Saber's attack pierces through as the Waxing Moon monster is destroyed, separating Chimon and Kaya safely, winning the battle and saving Edo. As Chimon dies alone, a solemn Iori picks up Kaya and leaves, feeling his sword still hungers. Taking the vessel, Iori has the Crimson Codex absorb it, rendering it powerless, but tells Saber they will not be destroying it. He steps away, acknowledging that despite so many people dying in this ritual, he has finally become honest with himself and embraces his true wish to quench his blade in battle. Wishing to keep the Waxing Moon to serve as an upheaval for all eternity, Iori finds Saber is not surprised by this turn of events. Iori elaborates that others have always viewed him as a peaceful, gentle warrior, but declares firmly that is not who he is and was never his goal. He reveals his goal has never changed, craving mastery of the way of the sword, and admits he was never a kind person. He only followed along a path of peace to try and understand the people around him of this era, but not to conform, but instead to exploit and better refine how to kill them. Growing by stepping over everyone was always the plan, from other masters to even Musashi, firmly declaring he will stand tall, living to slay every person he sees ever since he was entranced by the perfect blade work he witnessed by the Sword Saints so long ago. With the Waxing Moon enduring, it will draw countless warriors he can sharpen his sword against, and confesses all he's wanted was to fight Saber to the death. Rejecting all of it, Saber draws their sword, and the two partners now clash, with Iori refusing to give up the way of the sword even in an era of peace, accepting he is a bloodthirsty demon. At the height of their duel, Iori reads Saber as unleashing their ultimate move, ready with a counter, but fails as Saber unsheathes their true sword of heaven, running him through instead. Saber agrees with Iori, understanding their foe's feelings in order to defeat them, as what just happened, and Iori admits his loss and drops. Iori reflects that ever since he was adopted by Miyamoto Musashi, his master saw Iori was born in the wrong age, wishing to devote himself to the bloody path of the sword, trying to exist in a post-war era of peace. Killing their master, Saber no longer will remain in the world, and so lays down beside Iori as he dies, who says while his way of life was just a dream, at least he found a true friend along the way. Before fading away, Saber takes the Crimson Codex and sheds a tear, knowing Iori truly could have helped them grant their wish, destroying it and the vessel in a single slash while saying Iori was their only friend. As the sun rises on a new day, Kaya wakes up and rushes out only to find Iori's cold dead body as the cursed Waxing Moon ritual comes to a close. Fate's Samurai Remnant has enjoyed the success of selling over 410,000 copies worldwide. I just want to give a big thank you to Franz, who not only produced all the footage you saw here, but also helped edit the script, so go and follow them on the socials in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next battlefield.